Hello, we are from Group 6. My name is Tuti Falaki and I will try to explain Chapter 12, while my friend Raul Adam will explain Chapter 13. So, Chapter 12 is about pay for performance and financial incentive. For this chapter, there are 6 learning objectives, which is money's role in motivation, individual employee incentive and recognition program, incentive for salespeople, incentives for managers and executive, team and organization-wide incentive plans, and last but not least, incentive and employee engagement. First, learning objective is to understand the money's roles in motivation. Money is a crucial incentive to work motivation. It is a medium of exchange and the means by which employees can purchase things to satisfy their needs and desires. In late 1800, Frederick Taylor introduced financial incentive, an idea to give a financial reward to workers whose production exceeds some predetermined standard. This idea is met because employees tend to produce the minimum acceptable level, and by using financial incentive, he hopes that it will increase the employees' productivity. Sometimes, incentive plans fail to motivate employees. This can be caused by several reasons, such as manager incentive the wrong behavior, and another reason is that many managers ignore the fact that incentive may motivate some people, but not all of them. To improve this idea even more, he formulated first day work. It's a precise output standard for its job. Scientific management movement, the idea of emphasize improving work through observation and analysis, and the incentive pay, which I already explained earlier. There are 2 terms for incentive plans. Even though both terms are pay for performance plans, managers usually differentiate both terms as organizational focus and individual focus. Variable pay on organizational focus is a team or a group incentive plan that ties to some measure to the firm's overall profitability. And variable pay on individual focus is a plan that ties pay individual productivity, usually as one-time lump payments. In the book, there are 4 motivation theories for incentive plans. First theory is motivators theory by Frederick Herzberg. So, Herzberg said that the best way to motivate people, organize a job, then recognize it and provide a feedback to it. Giving intrinsic motivation, such as job enrichment or assigning more challenging job, will derive someone's pleasure by doing the task given, rather than extrinsic motivation, such as financial incentive, since there is no end to it. For example, an employee will ask for a raise every year, even though the responsibility and the work given is the same. The motivators theory by Edward Deci pointed out that relying too high on extrinsic motivation may backfire. Offering an extrinsic reward for an intrinsically motivated person can conflict with the acting individual's internal sense of responsibility. Next is expectancy theory by Victor Vroom. He highlighted that a person's motivation depends on 3 things, namely expectancy, one's expectation for her or his effort that will lead to performance, instrumentality, the connection, performance and obtaining the reward, and valence, the perceived value of a person regarding the reward. In conclusion, a human resource must make sure that an employee have the skill needed to do the job, comprehension of the incentive that they will get if they successfully do the job, and the value of the incentive for the employee. Behavior modification or reinforcement theory by Burrhus Frederick Skinner described that incentive can be used to shape one's performance through behavior modification. Skinner emphasized that behavior led to incentive or reward tends to be repeated, while behavior that led to punishment tends to not be repeated. Human resource can shape employees' behavior to fit the company by utilizing this rewards and punishment system. Next learning objective is the individual employee incentive and recognition programs. For individual employees incentive plans, there are 2 main incentive plans. First is the piecework incentive plans. This incentive plan is the oldest that's still used to this day. Earning from piecework incentive plans are tied directly to what the workers produce. Let's say that the person gets 1,000 rupiah for every toy that he or she assemble. Then he or she will get 200,000 rupiah for 200 toys. There are 2 types of piecework. Piecework incentive plans divided into 2 types, straight piecework and standard hour plan. In straight piecework, a fixed sum is paid for each unit the worker produces under an established piece rate standard. In this type, there are no guaranteed minimum wage since the incentive is based on how many goods they produce. For standard hour plan, the workers get a premium equal to the percent by which of his or her work performance exceeds the established standard. There are advantages and disadvantages of using Piecework. Piecework incentive plans have several advantages and disadvantages. The advantages of Piecework is that it is simple to calculate, easily understood, appear equitable in principle, and have powerful incentive value. This is because of the base that is used for Piecework, which is the piece rate pay system or the hourly rate system. For the disadvantage of using Piecework incentive plan, unsafe repetition might occur when employer raise the production standard. Since workers will focus more on quantity, it's highly possible that they will not pay attention to its quality. And because of that, equipment maintenance might tend to decline. A worker incentive pay will be based on how many goods they produce. It will become a problem if they have a low productivity rate, especially in Indonesia, where there is a upah minimum region or UMR or minimum wages. Even when a worker productivity rate is low, it's still violating the law if the employer paid them lower than the UMR. Merit pay is a salary increase the firm awards to an individual employee based on individual performance. It's different from bonus since bonus is generally a one-time payment. It can be said that merit pay is a permanent cumulative salary. The pros and cons of merit pay is that it can differentiate between individual and company's performance, but it can also backfire. Why? Because of unfair appraisal due to which merit decisions are taken. But it can be resolved by establishing effective appraisal procedures or ensuring that managers tie merit pay awards to performance, not by personal feelings or emotion. Professional employees are those whose work involves the application of learned knowledge to the solution of the employer's problem. Firms usually pay professional employees well since professional employees produce high caliber works. Example of professional employees is doctors, engineers, economists, lawyers, etc. In managing professional employees' pay, dual career ladders is often used. In dual career ladders, employers institute this such as one for managers and another for engineers. It has some compensation level for both tracks. Here, employers will offer professionals an opportunities to earn higher without switching to management. For example, by doing research, technology development, and so on. Recognition awards has a positive impact on performance, informal in nature. But recognition awards usually refer to formal programs such as Employee of the Month, Self-Award, Customer Service Awards, and etc. Both managers or employees can exchange recognition through praise, approval of expression for a job well done. Recognition will work better with performance feedback, since feedback can determine whether to change or maintain one's performance. Recognition-based awards can be given in form of certificates, merchandise, training program, etc. Next is the incentive for salespeople. First is salary plan. Salary plan is a plan that focuses on salary, commission, or some combination of the two. It's straight salary which is best for finding new clients, account, servicing, and training customer sales force. Next is commission plan. Commission plan pay salespeople only because of their result. It can attract high-level salespeople since they will be rewarded by their effort. It can increase the turnover of salespeople since it keeps sales costs proportionate to sales revenue. Commission plan can also cause neglect of non-selling activities such as servicing small account and hard-to-sell items. In setting sales quota and commission rate, employer want to motivate sales activity but avoid excessive commission. On how to set effective quota, manager can ask himself several questions such as: should quotas be locked in for a period of time? Does the sales force know how their quotas are set? Do high performers hit their targets consistently? Do low performers show improvement over time? Are quotes stable through the performance period? And so on. To help achieving maximum sales results and to track and control sales commission, managers can use an application which is Enterprise Incentive Management. Next learning objective is the incentive for managers and executive. Most managers get short-term, and long-term incentive in addition to salary. Short-term incentive includes annual incentive plans which reward achieving preset results and are usually paid in cash. Discretionary bonuses based on performance and retention bonus and the manager's shares of any profit-sharing plans, while long-term incentive is often paid in stock or stock option to link the shareholders and managers' interests. To pursue the growth of the firms, company cannot fully implement most strategies in just 1 or 2 years. Therefore, the long-term signals you send managers via long-term incentive and can determine whether the firm strategy succeeds. The reward for executive or managers can include base salary in terms of cash. Short-term incentive, such as bonus or long-term incentive in form of stock option. You can find this kind of executive reward in BNI Employee Shares Bonus Program. Each basic component should help focus the manager's attention on the behaviors required to achieve the company's strategic goals, using multiple strategy-based performance criteria for incentivizing executive is the best. Criteria include financial performance, number of strategic goals met, employees' productivity measures, customer satisfaction survey, and employees' morale survey. In short-term incentive and the annual bonus, most firms have annual bonus plans for motivating managers' short-term performance. There are three main factors that influence one's bonus. Employers must first decide. In short-term incentive and the annual bonus, most firms have annual bonus plans for motivating managers' short-term performance. There are three main factors that influence one's bonus. Employer must first decide on the employee's eligibility. Incentive eligible employees mean an eligible employees who has been decided by the compensation committee as being eligible to receive an incentive payment and who is party to retention agreement. Then, employer must determine how big the annual bonus fund should be. And finally, employers must decide the actual individual awards. Typically, the employer set a target bonus for each eligible position. The actual bonus then reflects the manager's performance. The bonus can be based on individual performance, corporate performance, or a little bit of both. Employers can also use long-term incentive to inject long-term perspective into their executive decision. If an employer only use short-term incentive, managers can boost profitability by reducing plant maintenance. But by doing this, it will backfire in several years later. And in the long-term incentive, it can be in form of stock option, performance shares, index option, premium price option, stock appreciation right. Next is a team and organization-wide incentive plan. Shortly, it is an incentive that based on team's performance. For employers, there are several things that needed to be considered for designing the team incentive. First, they have to set individual work standards. Some employees work harder than the others. That's a fact. The slower ones or sometimes free riders were paid the same as the faster one. This will cause injustice that will discourage working employees and make them slow down, decline on their production. To solve this problem, employers have to set out work standard for each team member and then calculate each of the members' output. Employers can pay the group member using one of the three formula, which is I'll receive the same pay earned by the highest producer, I'll receive the same pay earned by the lowest producer, or I'll receive the same pay equal to the average pay earned by the group. The pros of using team incentive is that it reinforces team planning and problem solving. It can also help ensure collaboration, encourage a sense of cooperation, encourage rapid training for the new members. But the cons of using group incentive is that it's not proportionate to an individual's effort, and the incentive will reward slow workers and or free riders, which, like I said before, will discourage hardworking employees. Profit sharing plans. Profit sharing plan is a plan in which all or most employees receive a share of the firm's annual profit. Studies say that profit sharing plans improve employee commitment, boost productivity and morale. There are several profit sharing plans such as the current profit sharing, or we call it cost plan. Employees share in portion of the employee profit quarterly or annually, and here the firm simply distribute a percentage of profit, usually 15% to 20% as profit shares, to employees at regular intervals. And then is the deferred profit sharing plans. The employer put cash award into trust account for the employee's retirement. Employees' income tax on the distribution are deferred until the employees retires or withdraw funds from the plan. Next is the Scanlon plans. It is an incentive plan developed in 1937 by Joseph Scanlon, and it's designed to encourage cooperation, involvement, and sharing benefits. Other gain sharing plans is an incentive plan that engages many or all employees in a common effort to achieve a company's productivity objective with any resulting cost saving gains shared among employees and the company. Earning at risk pay plans is a plan that puts some portion of employees' normal pay at risk if they don't meet their goals, in return for possibly a much larger bonus if they exceed their goals. And the employee stock ownership plan is where a corporation contributes shares of its own stock to a trust in which additional contributions are made annually. The trust distributes the stock to employee on retirement or separation from the service. And the last learning objective of this chapter is the incentive and employee engagement. In incentive and engagement, researchers found that although the compensation professional believe that the total rewards program can influence employee engagement, many of these professionals did not specifically include employee engagement as one of the goals of their compensation plans. They concluded that the most direct ways to encourage employees' engagement with incentive are to measure the extent to which supervisors are encouraging their subordinates to be engaged and to use incentive to reward supervisors for improving employee engagement. Even more important than the reward themselves, getting employees involved in developing the rewards program was the gold standard for building employee cooperation and commitment. So in brief, to make improving employees engagement a formal target of your compensation plan, appraise and incentive your supervisor partly based on whether they take steps to improve their subordinates engagement, and if possible, employers should get employee input for devising the incentive plan. And next, for the Chapter 13, benefit and services, will be explained by my friend Raul Adam.
Okay, now I'm going to discuss about benefits and services, Chapter 13. I'm Raul and I'm going to continue Lutfi's presentation. So, there are 6 points that we're going to discuss. There are 5 types of benefits, as you can see in the slides, and the last point would be the employment engagement guide for managers. The first form of benefits is what we call as pay for time at work, also known as the supplemental pay benefits. So the first form is the unemployment insurance. It provides benefits if a person is unable to work. Second, the vacations and holidays. It is simply when employers pays for the employees' holidays. Third is the sick leave. It provides pay to employee when they are out of work because of illness. And severance pay, it is the one-time payment when terminating an employee's contract. And the last one would be the SUB, supplemental unemployment benefits. It is similar to severance pay, but the difference being is it is being paid on a certain period of time, unlike severance pay, which is only being paid once. Next, it's the insurance benefits. In Indonesia, there are 2 types of social security programs mandated under the BPJS law. The first one is healthcare security, and the second, there are 5. Healthcare security, work accident security, old age security, pension security, and death security. BPJS of Health or BPJS Kesehatan, it covers all employees and residents, so it is not exclusive in workforce. Meanwhile, BPJS of Employment or BPJS Ketenagakerjaan, it provides employment security including work accident, old age, pension, and death benefits. All employees in Indonesia are required to register with BPJS. For retirement benefits, it is also provided by BPJS Kesehatan. So employers are required to enroll their employees in the old age security and pension programs under BPJS. Also, employees are entitled to enhanced statutory minimum termination benefits upon reaching the retirement age. Currently, the retirement age in Indonesia is 59 and will be 60 by 1st January of 2021, and it will increase up to when it reaches 65. So the first benefit, the old age security, it will provide cash benefit paid when participants reach retirement age, pass away, suffer a permanent total disability, or leaves Indonesia permanently. If the participant passes away, the benefits will be paid to their legal heirs. Second, pension security. It provides regular payments to participants or participants' beneficiaries after participants retire, suffer a permanent total disability, or pass away. The benefit being paid will be between 300,000 rupiah up to 3,600,000 per month, and the benefit is payable until the participant passes away. Continuing the retirement benefits, participants can begin receiving payments only after they have 1. Been enrolled in the program for at least 15 years or have reached the retirement age. Companies in Indonesia are required to register employees in the BPJS, or otherwise they will individuals who fail to register with BPJS will be unable to obtain driver's license, land certificates, and other documents needed for them to work. Next would be the personal services. Personal services benefits include credit unions, or in Indonesia we call it as koperasi perusahaan. Second, legal services, counseling, social and recreational opportunities. All are voluntary benefits rather than required or mandatory under the law. And as for the EAP, or the Employee Assistance Programs, it is a integrated service that provides counseling, advisory services, personal legal services, adoption assistance, mental health counseling, so on and so forth. Next, it's the family-friendly benefits. There are four benefits in this topic. It is the subsidized childcare, because in some workplaces they actually provide daycare facilities on site. Like from the book, it is stated that Goldman Sachs established their child center at its London branch to offer backup childcare services for the staff of Goldman Sachs. But usually in Indonesia, we have the employers would recommend a daycare service or for elder care, as well as personal nannies to hire, being provided by the employers. As the last one would be educational subsidies. Usually employers use additional subsidies to help employees pursue coursework or to pursue graduate university level, and to return as a much more qualified employee. Other personal services benefits, it varies from employers to employers, from workplaces to workplaces. Some might provide gym, or they might provide car companies to accommodate their employees. It differs from one workplace to another, and one of the most prominent ones are the what we call as the work. I forget the name. Co-working space. It is started by Google. Google pioneered the co-working space, so employees can work together, not in a confined office space. They can interact with each other. They can take a rest. It is in this day and age, this practice is more common in all sorts of industries. Next would be the flexible benefits program. There are two types of flexible benefit programs. The first is the cafeteria plan. It is the individualized tax qualified plans allowed by employers to accommodate employee preferences for benefits. Or in other words, in simpler terms, it is the reimbursements. So for instance, an employee is contracted to a certain private insurance company like Allianz. Then when the cafeteria plan takes place, the employers would pay for that private insurance program. And the second is the flexible work schedules. There are three types of flexible work schedules. The first one is a compressed work week. So the schedule is fewer but longer each day's week, so it's being cramped. Usually in airline industries, pilots will be recommended by the airline to have compressed work week, so they don't have to for example, one pilot travels from Jakarta to Surabaya, then from Surabaya to Surabaya to Makassar, for example, they will go just directly on that day, but they won't have to work the next week. And the second one is job sharing, allows 2 or more people to share a single full-time job. And the third is work sharing. It refers to a temporary reduction in work hours by a group of employees during maybe recession or any sorts of problems that in the industry when a crisis takes place, like for example during the COVID-19, some employers have opted to have work sharing instead of individual works. And the last one would be the employment engagement guide for managers. So how to engage with managers more efficiently. The first one is you have to get to know the employees, listen to their ideas, giving them rewards and recognition, give them growth opportunities, help employees voice their opinions. All of these points are being covered and can be covered by the benefits that I have been mentioned before. Thank you. This is all from us, Group 6. My name is Raul. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.